Hi, brother. This is great. I've been dying to do this with you for years. It's been a really long time that I've been waiting in this podcast journey, even with radio.
Yeah.
It's always been fun to, there's people you always want to talk to because you're friends outside of radio. You're one of those people.
Well, that's the thing. Like you know how there's people that know that, and then they get butthurt because they're not invited to the thing.
But you don't get butthurt.
I know because
you don't.
unlike the people that you have on, they don't have the access, right, to like be able to talk to you anytime.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you've made that very aware to me
right? You know
a couple times.
So
You're like, yo, I picked up your phone calls, and I'll do this for everybody.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel, I do the same thing. And I was telling my wife on the trip up, I was like, yeah, man, it's been a really long time that I've known this guy, and getting to sit here with Jae Soto. He's a church planter, graphic designer. This man does a bunch of different things. I could go on with all his titles and all the things he does. And he is more than all of that, a good friend that I've known and a father for many, many years. You have 5 children, right?
5 kids and 1 grandkid.
Come on, son. This man has a whole basketball squad with a substitute, ready to come in whenever ready. And so I think with the Daddy Dialogue podcast, it's funny because you helped me create the logo. A lot of people don't know the logo that we have was created by Jay. He's a graphic designer by trade and an artist too. And so the good thing is he literally said, he sent me a couple samples. I had a vision he sort of put it together. And then what people see now is what Jay created a couple years ago, actually.
Years ago, yeah.
It was years ago. And he sent it to me. I was in Texas at the time. And I remember him sending it. And I was like, oh, this is dope. We're going to use it. I didn't know God was going to make it to what it is now. And what's it evolved to. Not that it's huge, but at the same time, what we're clearly targeting these days, which is inspiring fathers.
I think it's bigger now than the idea you first gave me.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. Because at the beginning, it was just talking about my son. Like having
you just wanted to talk about the fact that, and then even that was impactful. Yeah, I might flip this. Even that was impactful because I remember at the house where we prayed.
It's true.
For you to have a kid, like you asked me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, the Lord says take everything to Him in prayer, right? Take everything to Him in prayer. And we prayed about it, right?
And now we're 10 years in, and my son's about to be 10. So that lets you know everything you need to know how powerful God is.
Right. So.
And so I think that's really dope, and I'm excited to talk to you because all the years we've been talking, I've noticed. So when you have friends that you've had for a while and you love and admire and respect them, you get to know more and more about them. And so Jay's story has unraveled through 10 years. I've slowly started to get more and more. And actually, last night, you were giving me even more stuff. And I was like, yo, this thing was straight treacherous. Like, you didn't really say these things. I was sort of keeping it low-key. Like, all right, cool, I heard that before. But nah, I ain't heard that part before. And so the good thing is that there is a rising at the end where there's a great part to the story, and I wanted to tap into something that you dealt with as a young child, and it was that you had a father who was an alcoholic. And so my father, and I knew when I was going to touch the subject, I could be vulnerable. You were like, hey man, I'm going to give you all I got, but at the same time understand this is real stuff. I was like, it's going to put me in a position where I'm going to have to speak about my own situation. My dad wasn't addicted to liquor. He was addicted to weed. And so smoking weed, I saw it at a really young age, and it affected me. It affected me on me not wanting to deal with drugs because I felt like if my dad was being hurt that way, why would I deal with it?
It's like that. So I do have like a drink every once in a while, right? Mm-hmm. But like in the back of my head,
you're thinking about that.
I am not. If I'm gonna have a beer, I'm gonna have 1, at most 2, because I don't want to fall into whatever it is that my dad fell into that made him real comfortable with alcohol.
Does it come? Do you get a vision of your pops, or is it just a thought? Like,
it's just
I don't want to be that dude.
It's not a vision. It's a memory. It's me remembering
quickly
him. Coming home, stumbling, falling down, smacking the walls, trying to make it to the room.
Speaking of this, so if you can go back a little bit, because I was interested in understanding through your eyes as being a child what it looked like. When did you realize? At what age were you clearly evident that you knew your dad was an alcoholic? Like, what was that look like? Were you 7, 8? How young were you when you remember you were like, yo, something's wrong with my pops? I think this dude, because I give you an example with me. I knew my dad had a drug problem when he would, I told you this, something I struggled with years and I had to go to counseling. He would take me on these trips.
Yeah.
We would be in some back alley in Miami, and he would walk out, buy some drugs, come back. I'd be sitting in the car scared, like, what are we doing here? But so that's when I realized something, you know, you get that notion like something here is not right. What was that moment for you?
It was exactly what I just said. It was
You
me
seeing him stumble?
opening the door to my room, right? So we lived in a project. Right?
Okay.
A lot of people don't know this about me, okay? Because
Yeah.
they see me now, right? The blessing of God now. But I grew up in one of the worst projects in New York City back in the day. You know, that title of worst projects, it travels a lot.
Oh.
All over the city, right?
Okay.
So when I was growing up, I lived out in Far Rockaway, Queens, shout out, right? It used to be known, it used to be called Hard Rock, but I lived in Edgemere Projects that was known as Vietnam. Like cops wouldn't come in. Something happened to you in Edgemere, like you're dead. Like you take it, right? But so we lived in the projects, and my bedroom was at the end of the hallway. We had a 4-bedroom apartment at the end of the hallway. So I opened my door, I get a straight line of the hall into the living room, right? And I remember that Papi came home one day, and I opened the door, and he was having a hard time just trying to put his jacket in the closet that's right in front of the door, and then walking down the hallway. And I know that he was speaking, but it was gibberish, right?
Exactly.
And he was just like slamming into the walls of the hallway, and just we're not going. Like I didn't know. I thought he was sick.
How old are you at this time, Jay?
I don't even remember. I don't even remember. But that image of him having a hard time walking and slurring his words
is what is cemented in your brain.
Yeah, just the slurring. And then, you know, there was a time when my brothers and I knew that was the perfect time to ask my dad for money because he couldn't see what he was giving us.
So he was. So you guys were hustling him for cheap.
Yeah.
Question.
He would crash on the couch. Hey, Papi, like, give me $1 so I can go get some candy.
Toma.
Yo,
how
we luck out.
Jay, how did that impact you as you got older? Did you see your dad in a different light? Did it affect the way you dealt with him, or it was just? I feel like sometimes as parents or when we're kids, sometimes it's like, what's that word? Where you just get used to it and it's just something you tolerate it.
Yeah,
that's the word.
You become numb to it. It becomes.
But do
it becomes normalized, so you get desensitized.
That's what I'm. And
right?
Internally, you sort of get mad. Like, here we go again with this guy.
I never got
to that
mad
point.
Because my dad, even though he was an alcoholic, he would get drunk all the time. And this was only when I was young. Like as I got older, he stopped drinking as much, and then there was a time that he stopped completely. And every once in a while, just have a beer. You know, the Puerto Rican beer, Heineken.
Yeah. Okay.
Nasty. But like for me, it became normal, right? Like Papi was out all day, and he came home drunk, and that was just a normal thing, right? In my mind, and this is gonna be oh, bendito. To me, I don't know about my siblings, and there are a lot of us. I don't know about my siblings, but to me, if my mom was okay with it, then I had no business having a problem with it, right?
You think, and that was one of my questions too. You think she looked the other way, or she just dealt with it because she loved him? You told me the story of them being high school sweetheart. She just tolerated and dealt with it.
Yes, I think it's both. I think it's yes.
Being
she okay. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that I think played a part. I think yes, she just loved him and prayed for him to get out of it, right? I think that she dealt with it in a lot of different ways, because sometimes my dad, so having a short fuse, like a quick temper, and a drunk, it's a bad mix.
It's a toxic situation.
Right? It's a bad mix. So there were times that my dad would come drunk and he would stumble and he would fall asleep and the whole house heard him snoring. And there were times where he would come and he would be fighting and cursing everybody out. Or at those times, remember something that you did months ago that he didn't beat you for.
And bring it up.
And beat you then.
Well, that's traumatic.
No. It gets worse. It gets worse. Because my dad is, from a different generation. And this is, I'm getting ahead of myself. But he would make us count each hit. right? Make us count each hit. And if he's drunk and he don't know where he is,
he's counting double and triple.
No, he's starting over. Right? So you're 20 licks in.
But
right?
how effective can he be drunk like that? Was he effective?
Yes.
Because you know how some people are so out of it, they're not even hitting correctly.
Nah.
And
my dad never missed.
He was legit.
He never missed.
How did it? Do you think when your dad wasn't drunk, or there's moments of conviction where he would be like, "Yo, I felt"?
No.
He wouldn't bring it up. It wasn't a conversation.
That's what it was.
How long did it take before you had a real conversation with your pops?
I was 30 years old.
When
or
you
maybe like 31. 31.
When you brought it up.
Yeah, I flew up to New York. Like, because I didn't want to. Early 30s. No, maybe like late 20s, whatever it was. I didn't want to go through my life resenting my parents. So it wasn't just my dad, right? So it was my dad for all the abuse, all the physical abuse, all the verbal abuse, right? But then I also resented my mom because my mom let it happen. In my mind, right, she let it happen. Like, he beat me till I bled one time.
Do you think...
And she let it happen.
And I don't want to jump the gun, but...
Dale.
Because you felt like that about both of them, how did it affect you when you had children? Like your parenting style? Or it didn't?
So, it did. So, check this out. At first, it didn't. But there was this one time with my son where he locked the keys in the car. And right away, I got angry.
You blew up.
No. Praise God, I did it. But I got angry. And, right, I started, instead of trying to figure it out and try to figure out a way to, like, try to get the keys out, I started attacking him. Like, what te pasa? What's wrong with you? How can you do this? And then, thank God that my father slapped the crap out of me and told me, think before you speak.
Ooh.
Right? Because in my mind, right, I heard myself call my son effing stupid. Right? Say it to him. Like, you're so, it's like, in my mind I heard it, but it never came out of my mouth because I caught myself. Because that was my dad.
Yeah.
Right? That was my dad.
It's what you saw.
Right?
Or heard.
It's what I heard. Like that abuse. That molded my identity of thinking that I was never good enough. That I was the worst of the worst. Right? Things that he put in me. Right? And I don't think that he put it in me. Well, I know that he said these things to me in fits of anger and rage, right? And his rage was something that was never spoken about or touched on until I had that conversation with him, right? So when I caught myself about to call my son that, say that to my son, I stopped. Like, I just shut up.
In the moment.
Right? I just shut up. I saw myself. I saw my dad in me, right? The bad parts of my dad. Because my dad wasn't all bad, right?
No.
But the bad parts. And
it was like roaring its ugly head.
Dude, and I stopped. I apologized to my son, right? Intentionally, because like we just said, like my dad just kept it moving. So did I get an apology from my dad? When I had that conversation, that was when I was 30.
The conversation, wait, and I know you're all over the place and there's so much to the story. But
there's a lot that I don't talk about.
When you spoke to your father, was there an anxious like fear that he was going to... When you went into the conversation... I asked you this because I'm going to have a conversation similar to yours with my father soon here. It's going to be on a podcast. We're literally going to do it just like that. We're going to be honest and
real. You're braver than me.
Yeah, I am. But we've had a preliminary conversation, and I can tell he's already a little afraid.
Yeah, he knows it's coming.
He knows something is coming. And so he's... Not that I'm trying to expose him. I want to honor him more than anything.
Right.
Because I still think my father did a lot of great things. But when I hear yours, I want to sort of envision, was there some fear involved? Like
there was,
because you know how you feel like when you spit. I'm sure every son does this. When you go sit with your dad and you're 40 years old, you feel like you're 10.
Yeah,
you're speaking to your elder,
100%.
So there's a fear there that people are, whatever, I felt great. No, you didn't. Stop lying because it takes you there. How was that process?
Well, it depends, right? Because, like, Latino dads are...
Different.
They're different. No, yo, I was determined. I bought a plane ticket because I was already in Georgia, and I flew up to New York. I made sure that nobody was there. Right, it was just my parents and I. Right, and I sat like they sat on the couch, and I sat on the dining room table far,
just in case.
Just in case, you know.
So wait, you had both of them together?
I had both of them together.
Oh snap! You didn't say that part.
I needed both of them together because I needed my dad to know how he raised me affected me, and I needed my mom to know her acquiescence in doing nothing and allowing her
or not fighting for you guys.
Right, and turning her back on those things, right, also made me resent her growing up, right, because it's not, oh yeah, my dad beat me, right, but your mom is there,
and she did absolutely
right,
nothing.
your mom is there, and she allowed it, because my dad wasn't uno que, sorry, the Spanglish.
Now you're good.
Right? My dad wasn't one that that would just like hit you with his hand or with a belt or whatever. My dad would grab whatever was close to him. Si era un palo, un tubo,
anything,
a wire hanger,
hit you whatever. Yo, old school stats.
Yo, old school. Yo, son. I came home from playing baseball with the church one time, and my mom was ironing. Y él fue, yo, de un seat. He cut the cable of the iron, pulled it out the wall, and beat me with it because I came home after dark. Right? Because this is back in the day. Like, you come home when the street lights go on, right? But I came home a little later than that, and it wasn't my fault because it's the church van, so the church van is dropping off everybody, right? But my mom was there, and it was never but you know, no le dé con eso, like nothing. It was just, you know, she let it happen. So I had to sit there with the both of them, and I sat far, right? Because like you said, you know, you still feel like 8 to 10 years old. They knew
you were coming to conversate with them, or
hell no?
You set it up as me just visiting.
Hell no, I'm just visiting Georgia. I'm going to visit my parents.
You came for the okie doke when you had them sitting down.
And I thought what I expected.
That's the part I want to hear.
What I expected was my dad was going to tell me. He was going to tell me off. Like, who the hell do you think you are?
You were prepared for that if it was coming.
That's what I was expecting. Who do you think you are? I'm your father, and you have no right. Whatever, you know, whatever. Right?
Yeah. How did it go?
And dude, he apologized.
That had to be emotional for you, bro.
Yo, it's emotional now.
To hear
I don't need to.
Yeah,
I'm trying not to like tear up.
No, I get it.
He apologized. He apologized, and he said, I know that I have not been the perfect father, right? And I'm like, Papi, come on. There's no such thing as perfect father.
Sure.
Right? Perfect father, no hay en ningún lado, right? But he was like, I did the best that I could with the little knowledge I had, right? So then I'm like, well, what do you mean? Right? Because, you know, by the time, I'm number 10 of 11 kids, right? So by the time you got to me, you had knowledge.
You should be versed, well versed.
You had knowledge. But then I learned things that I didn't know, right? So I learned then that his father was an alcoholic, abusive bastard, right? Who never apologized, never did anything, but all he did was, so my dad's the oldest of like 16 kids or 17 kids, and his father was always drunk, like all day, every day drunk, and beat all of them. But my dad would protect his other brothers and sisters, so he would get the majority of the hits. And my grandfather was always drunk, so my dad had to quit school at the 8th grade, right, to go get a job so that he could become the dad for his siblings, right? So he lived what he learned. He didn't know anything else. And he taught what he learned, and he taught what he lived, right? My dad, if social media was around way back in the day, my dad would have been like the first Puerto Rican Anthony Bourdain, because he would work at restaurants and then learn from there and teach himself and whatever. And then through the school of New York City restaurants became like this big high chef, gourmet chef. I can show you pictures of spreads and things that he did.
Wow.
Right? And he did all that because when my mom was sent from Puerto Rico to New York, to the Bronx, because, you know, back then all the Puerto Ricans were in the Bronx, to get her away from my dad. ¿Verdad? And so he went to work in restaurants because they sent her with an abusive aunt that wouldn't feed her. So he worked at a restaurant so that he could bring her food. Right? And how he brought her food is the projects. Like he would go to the roof of the building with a bag on a string and bring it, like put it down by the side of the building so she can get it from the window. Right? So there's like all these things, right? So he was abusive and he was a drunk because of what he learned, but then he had this like sweet side, right? He was super romantic. I mean, my mom, when my dad died 9 years ago, my mom realized that he did everything for her. So I had to teach my mom how to put gas in the car because my dad wouldn't let her do anything.
That's amazing.
Because he took care of her, right? So, you know, he had this romantic side, he had this creative side. All my creativity comes from my dad. My singing comes from my dad, like all these things. But, you know, I was able to sit there and learn that, yes, there are certain things that you have to take responsibility for, right? And there are certain things that you need to know, right? But you also need to learn where the person is coming from, right? And we're from different generations, right? And that generation, they don't know how to love the way it's needed because the generation that taught them didn't know how to love at all,
or didn't barely even speak,
right?
to them.
Didn't know how to love at all. It's just I provide, ¿verdad? So I was able to learn that my dad was that way because his dad was worse, right? So even the way me thinking how bad it was, it could have been worse.
Could have been worse, or he was going through it worse,
right? And you know, he apologized. I told him, well, you know, I wish I would have known this earlier. I spent a lot of years hating you because you were so abusive. And then my mom, on her side, had an abusive dad, and through her side, she saw that her mom was silent when her father did stuff to her and her siblings, right? So she learned to become silent, right? She learned not to say anything because according to what she grew up, that's how wives were supposed to be. You let the dad, you know,
typical.
You know, it's a cycle. It's a cycle. So
so during that conversation, you got that from your father. Your mom spoke too?
Yeah. We all three of us spoke. We all spoke. We all cried. I learned things about them. I learned things about my dad.
How did your life change from that moment?
And it's funny because what changed in my life at that moment is my perspective on seeing people, right? And it's helped me even in ministry, and especially now.
Yeah, especially being a pastor.
That I'm now in Florida as a pastor. So I learned in that moment from my dad how God loves us, right? And this is how I'll tie them together. I learned from my dad that it's not that he didn't love me, is that he was trying to be the best dad he could with the tools that were passed down to him from his dad, which were crappy tools. Right? Crappy tools. And so I learned to love my father, right? In spite of everything that he's done, the bad stuff, right? Because like I said, there was good and bad. But in spite of all the bad stuff, I learned to love my father as my father, right? So
regardless of his shortcomings.
Regardless of his shortcomings, regardless of the things that he did knowingly and unknowingly, I learned to just like fall in love with my dad again, right? And then in doing that, I learned that this is how God loves us. God doesn't love us because of what we give or how we act or what we do, right? God loves us in spite of ourselves, and in spite of our knuckleheadedness, and in spite of our rebellion, and in spite of us pushing him away.
What an example,
right? I learned that that's how God loves me. Like, you know, Bobby loved me in the way he knew how, and I had to love him because of that. Because it's, you know, when it comes down to it, it's not his fault. You learn what you live, right? And that's what legacy is all about. Legacy is all about what we leave behind, right? So I learned, like, that was the first time my dad told me he loved me, right? And so because I never heard it growing up, all of my kids hear it all the time. My grandson hears it all the time. I mean, they hear it to the point that if one of them told me, "All right, Jai, I know you love me," like,
You're driving me crazy, Dad.
right? Like, it would have surprised me that
That's
would be their response.
but that's awesome, man.
Right?
I wanted to also understand what is something that you've followed through with that your dad taught you. Because we sat here and we pretty much spoke just the bad things.
Well,
give me one thing you've instilled in Sonia and Sebastian that you picked up from your father.
It's all of them, right? So Sonia, Sebastian,
all your kids, yeah.
Right? Junie, Moo, Mimi, they're all nicknames. Because you don't need to know my kids' names.
Yeah. Good one. Mimi,
right?
Moo.
Right? So is the creativity, right? And to embrace and move and like really express that creativity, right? So, which is wild, right? Because my dad, I went to art school, I went to an art high school, I went to an art college and all that. And my dad would always say, deja eso, like ponte a cocinar, like become a chef or become a teacher, right? Those are jobs that you will always have, right? And those
typical Hispanic parents.
Apply for your family, your kids, whatever. And I'm like, I don't want to do that though. Like, I want
something else.
I want to be a comic book artist. Pero, and I got into fashion design, right? I get into fashion design. I'm designing clothes and whatever, and I'm lacing my dad up with gear, right? My dad was the freshest street mechanic in Far Rockaway. My dad would go. So I used to work for Sean John back in the day, and I was like in the height of urban fashion, right?
Okay.
95, 96, really 96. And I would get my dad the Sean John velour tracksuits in all the colors, right? And this guy would, right? He went from saying, "No, don't do that. Don't be creative. Don't do, you're not gonna make money as an artist." To like, mira lo que hizo mi hijo, mira.
Yeah, I got it on.
Right? Look at this. This is my son. My son did this. Pero at the same time, he would go in his in the Sean John tracksuits and go fix cars.
Oh Jesus!
And go fix cars.
Typical dad.
All over the place. And I'm like, Papi, what are you doing? That's not for that. He's like, what? Get me another one.
Oh wow, that boy was cocky with it. He didn't care.
Get me another one. Get me another one. You got me like 6. You can get me another one, right? And I'm like, ay bendito. My dad also. So check this out. Oh damn. So my dad, growing up, was rebellious towards God. My growing up. So my parents met in the church as kids, right? Culto de jóvenes, cosas así, right? So, but growing up, he had just a disdain towards the church and towards God or whatever. And growing up, it was always, my mom would drag us to church, and my dad would drag us to the parties. And in spite of all of that, whenever I didn't think this would be hard.
Well, no, say it.
Whenever I was invited to New York to preach or to do some ministry or whatever, Papi was the first one to show up.
And be there present.
Not only that, Diache, he would come fully suited up, right? Laced up, looking his best, and would always be at every single church service that I would preach in. Every single one.
That's amazing.
And he would make fun of me. He was like, "Oh, what are you doing? Like, a pastor or a preacher should be dressed nice." Say, like, Papi, I don't do that. Like, I don't do that. I was beat up with legalism in the church. I don't do that.
I'm free now.
I don't do that. So he was like, I look more like a preacher than you do. Say, because you've always been a preacher, Pa. You've always been a preacher. It's like, I don't just church, whatever. Like, yeah, but you've always taught me. Like, even though you didn't go to church, even though you had this thing against church and God or whatever, but you always taught me that if you believe in something, go all in for it, right? Go all in, right? You believe whatever it is you believe in, right? Stand by your convictions and go all in, right? He never stopped me from going to church. He never stopped me from pursuing God. Years and years ago, my dad sat me down and he told me, since, como tú vas a ser pastor, and you know how to draw and you design a building. And when you're a pastor, we're going to build your church building together. And I think about that all the time because he's gone. And now is 50 years old, stepping into this whole pastoral role and looking at all these things. And
you would wish for him to see you now.
Of course, 100%.
The
last time I saw my dad, I moved him to Georgia because of Hurricane Sandy. And we went out to a friend's house, right? Pool, whatever, because my dad was all my friends' dad. And not like he was all my friends' dad. So it was always Papa Joe. Papa Joe, Papa Joe. And we're at his house. We're at my friend's house in Georgia. Pool party, just whatever. And my dad and myself were in the kitchen. Because he went and he got my dad some Heinekens. He got him some beers, right? And my dad's like, oh, well, I don't drink. I don't drink like I used to. Right? But, to celebrate, like...
I'll take a swig.
All of us have one, right? I'm like, Dad, I hate this beer. This is like the worst beer ever. It's like, all of us have one. So then we're sitting there and we're just talking, just chopping it up, whatever. And my friend asked, hey, so Papa Joe, how's church? Right? Because we all left, so it was just him and my mom. And my dad started to be with my mom. My dad started going to church again. And he would just sit there with my mom. And any event they had, my dad would cook for the event. He would fix the church, anything that was wrong with the church building. He would fix it and whatever, because he was super handy. Fixed everything, knew how to do everything. And he said to him, church is good. I just go and I sit with your mother, right? And I'm okay, but I thought you said you weren't going to church anymore. And then he tells me this. He tells me, I didn't like the church because your mother was always there. Right? So it always felt like your mom...
Yeah, chose the church over me.
Chose the church.
Like my father, same
and chose all those people over me. Right? Pero, como nobody's home now, it's just us. Right? So for your mother, to be with your mother, I go, and I sit there and it's cool. Like the songs, I know all the songs and everything. So then I'm here taking advantage of this opportunity that he's all soft and sharing. And
he's ready.
And I'm like, okay, so she started going back to church then. Like, how's your heart with God now? Right? And he said, Junior, right? Because I'm Junito. It's like, Junior, me and God are okay. Like, I'm translating what he said, and he said it in Spanish. He said, me and God are okay. Like, Jesus knows my heart, right? And I have Jesus in my heart. I just had a problem with the church taking your mother from me. But me and Jesus, we're good. It's like, we're good now. Right? Dude, and that's all I needed, right? Because
that was like the last piece of closure you needed.
Dude, that's all I needed, because, I mean, I know that a lot of churches, you have to do, they think that you have to do this whole prayer and this whole, count 6 times, touch your left shoulder nonsense. With your touch your left shoulder with your right hand, right? Or you poke your nose. But you believe with your heart, you believe in your heart and confess with your voice, right? That's what Scripture says.
You preaching now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. I'm a pastor all the time. And that's what my dad did, right? Here in that confession, right, with the beer in his hand, so that's for all you folk, with the beer in his hand, he said, right, Jesus knows my heart, right? He knows our heart. I have Jesus in my heart, and God and I are good now, right? My problem was with the church because your mom was there 7 days a week, right? But me and God, we're good now. Salud. There you go. We keep it moving.
You were good to hear that,
right? And then a month later, God called him home, right?
But you were able to get that closure at the end.
Like, it still hurt because that's my dad,
of course,
right? But,
of course.
And I have. We're not gonna have, thank God, we're not gonna have another Heineken because that stuff is nasty. But that
was the last one ever. That's not gonna happen again.
I have that hope that we'll be chilling again, right? So that's the thing. You know,
I think it's
fathers being a father. I'm sorry that I cut you off.
No, you're good.
Being a father is the hardest job that a man could have. Right? Before I moved out of Georgia to come to Florida to plant a church, I was an art director for the news up there. That jump was easy. Right?
Compared to the
designing, easy. Right? Being a husband is easy compared to being a parent. Right? Being a father is the hardest job.
It is.
It's the hardest job because, and the hardest part about it is that you are trying to raise a better version of you. Right? And you see in, like, when you have children and you're responsible for all these children, all of a sudden all of your shortcomings are alive in you.
All your vulnerabilities are on display.
And all of a sudden you realize that you are a lot more. Okay, it's like somebody does something to my wife, right? You know, be careful. I will come after you. You touch my kids, I'm going to jail.
Yeah, it's different.
Right? You touch my kids, I'm going to jail.
It's different.
You speak to my kids sideways.
Yeah,
I'm going to jail.
I can't even put the thoughts into fathom.
But this is the thing, right? Mm-hmm. You disrespect my wife, I'm gonna get in your face, right? Probably knock out a tooth or two, right? You talk sideways to my kids, like you better be good with Jesus because you're about to meet him. Right? It's like it's just one of those things, right?
Sure.
But and then at the same time, right? Your kids don't know, so you get a mini you pushing back at you, right? And then when they're, because I'm already, like, my oldest is already 30, right? So I already went through all this stages.
And the sad part is they know how to push the buttons the right way because they're an image of you.
Because they're an image of you, and you know, and they push back, and you don't get your kids back. You don't get your kids back until they're older, and most times until they become parents.
Woo!
Right? Because my oldest is 30, and we had a rocky relationship for a lot of separate reasons. But now that, you know, that she's at like 18 or 19, I had to hit her up. It's like, all right, your mom has nothing to do with this anymore. Right? So now it's just me and you. If you want a relationship with me, it's me and you. And we agreed to that. And it's amazing. But then now that she's a mom, I hear from my daughter every day.
Wow.
Like, every day. We talk every single day. We'll talk. And she'll send me stuff like,
baby pictures?
She'll send, you know, pictures of the grandson, but like, you know, also like the things, well, you know, your grandson said or did this, and I said this to him, and boom. Like, that was one of your things. It's like, great. I sound just like my dad now. Right? I sound just like my dad.
That's good though. It's passing down.
Oh my God, it's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is,
I haven't got there yet.
No, you haven't. And what I'm saying is that it's the hardest thing that a man can do, because a man has to be a teacher, has to be a provider, has to be a friend, has to be a counselor, has to be a doctor, has to be vulnerable, has to show sensitivities, right? Like I said, even you look at my Instagram, Hood Raised, Jesus Saved, right? But you saw Sonia, when my baby girl comes to me and she asked me to have a tea party with her, right? I said, but I'm princesa de papi. It's like, okay, baby, let's go.
You're done. You're stuck.
That's it.
I think I've learned a lot, man, more about just your journey. And I've known you for a long time. I think it's been, how many years has it been now? Like over 12 years, I think. I would say over 12.
Oh, no, it's definitely over 12.
Over 12.
I've been in Georgia for 20 years. I've been with my wife for 13.
Yeah, I know you at least 15, I would say.
At least 15, 16 years.
And it's crazy, man, because there's people you talk to, Jay, and you hear what season of life they're in. And you hear, like, I remember many years ago that I would talk to him and be like, yo, this dude is mad. There's some real, like, heat issues inside. Like, the way he comes at specific things you talk about, he's coming for your jugular. And I think we all do that when we get old. When we get older, we sort of start to mature in certain areas. And now I hear you, and it's different. Like the dude I
Bro,
hear now is very
and
I say that because like
no. You
and some people don't, if they don't get to know you, they continue to assume
right
that's who
right.
you still are.
I can't fight that. I can't fight that. I turned 50 on Tuesday.
Happy birthday, brother.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I think that's.
I turned 50 on Tuesday, a number I never thought I'd reach, like just because of the lifestyle I had as a kid, the upbringing, you know. And you can say that you survived the drive-by by
You say
no hold on because this is when you say that you survived the drive-by by folding yourself into a payphone, right? You then have to explain what a payphone is more than what a drive-by is.
That tells you how old that is.
Right? That tells you how old I am.
You're talking about the one with the little door, right? That you go into?
No. The one that was just like the hub, and then the phone was in there.
Oh, and
so they called me Flacco my whole life. So I saw the car, I saw the person, I recognized the person, and I just squeezed. It was like I had to run inside the bodega, right?
Get that shot up.
Or I mean, it did, but I just went and I squeezed myself into that little booth thing.
Oh my god!
Because it's back in the day. It's like it was iron or just whatever it was, but it was metal. And you bing bing and you know whatever. But whatever. When I say stuff like that, so what's a phone booth? Like,
yeah, people don't know what that is.
What is that? What's a payphone? What's a phone
They have
booth?
no idea,
right? But I'll be 50 on Tuesday, son, and I'm just grateful. Like right now, and I think I said this in one of my devotionals, that I have a cemented peace in my heart, right? So it's cemented. It's there. It's never going anywhere. Nothing can break it. Nobody can do anything to it. People can try, right? And even as a pastor, like, you know, I'll still throw these hands if I have to.
Yeah.
Right? But I have a cemented peace that it can't go anywhere. And right now, I'm in this reflective, grateful place in my life. Right? I've got 5 kids that I
sort of seems peaceful, you ask me.
That I don't need, that I don't deserve. Right? I've got a grandson that I never thought I would have. Right? I've got a wife that's amazing and loves me in spite of all my stupid stuff. And what you know, I don't know if you know, but I'm gonna tell you people, you know, because now we live in a different generation and different terms. Like when I met my wife, I was both homeless and unemployed.
Wow. Son.
Right? And for whatever she saw in me, right? 13 years, boy. 13 years. Right? Talk about like full restoration. 13 years.
You can't make that up, son.
No, not at all. Like my life's been a movie, and
speaking of the journey,
and I praise God for it.
I think, and you're about to be the big 5-0, correct? The big 5-0. Hey, listen, because I want to end on this note. 2 things. One, we're in this beautiful studio in St. Petersburg, Florida. This is downtown St. Pete, right?
This is downtown
the Berg. Y'all call it the Berg. The Berg, whatever they call it.
And we are in a friend that I made here.
Okay. This is a dope spot, I will say.
Dude, you can just see back here.
Because his artwork is back there. He's going to be at Art Basel. I'll give you more information on that too.
Yeah. His name is Matt Kress.
You can
find him on Instagram on the Matt Kress
This man does murals, paint situation real serious.
And he's serious, and I mean, you heard him. We were all talking before. Like this man loves Jesus.
Shout out to Matt.
Right?
Matt
loves Jesus.
He's eccentric. You can see like the man's artwork. Like you can tell a lot when you see somebody's location and see the kind of work they're doing. Tells you a lot about who they are.
And the fact that that he came in, he let us in, right? Set up whatever you want, whatever you want, do whatever you want. I'm out. Just let me know when you're leaving, and that's it.
No issues,
right? Like, so look him up on social media, Matt Kress Art, and I am grateful for the people that God has placed in my life, because it's you, right? It's like you. We're gonna throw this back on.
Here we go. I don't know what this man is doing right now.
I'm just what I'm gonna say. So when you and I met, I was doing music in Atlanta, mostly in Spanish and Black churches, and because of that, I don't even want to say fame, right? Because it was like I was Atlanta famous, right? I was Atlanta famous. I got gifted a show on the radio. Right? And they didn't let me do anything. I really wanted to change the name. They didn't let me do anything. But you were already doing radio for a while. And without even us meeting, right? Chino This is MySpace days.
Shout out to Chino Life.
Right? Chino Life. Chino hit me up on MySpace.
He was a pastor also in Georgia.
Interviewed him. Like, he's a pastor of the city that I left.
Yeah.
Right? And he connected us. And without us even meeting yet, like, you just gave me all of this help and pointers and, like, taught me a whole bunch of things about radio without us even meeting.
Yeah, right? I don't even know what that...
Because that's who you are, right? And that's your heart. And anybody that knows you knows that you give open-handedly without expecting, wanting, or demanding anything in return. We both know artists in the industry, right? Artists that are big, and making it big and doing big things, right? That we have had a hand in when they were nobodies, trying to hustle and trying to sell CDs,
trying to get known out here,
right? Trying to make a name for themselves, right? Like, we know that we've had a hand, and there are not many people, Blaze, that are like you. Not many people, especially in the industry, because now I'm like neck deep in the industry with this whole indie label that I have, and people get amazed. They get amazed when they reach out to me because they heard my name from somebody, and they're like, well, I need help with this and that, and I tell them, no, I mean, I don't, like, you're just starting out, right? I don't need money from you, right? I don't need money from you. Whatever, I'm here to help, right? I'm here for advice, and and I do that because that was done to me with you and with other people, because my show on the radio in Atlanta became one of the top Hispanic, like, music shows in Atlanta when we had it, right? That I went from an hour to like a 4-hour block, and I know what to do anymore, right? But it wouldn't have gotten there without you just freely, like, yo, you need this, you need that, you know what these are, and then also helping me out and connecting me with these artists so I can have them on the show, and especially the Holy Hip Hop Awards. Remember that back in the day,
Atlanta,
right? So, like, people don't know this. People don't know this about you, and I think that you need to be honored for that. Like, you deserve to be honored. I'm going to give you your flowers now, because I know that you sit there, because I know I do. I know you sit there and you see these people who won't even call you. They don't even call you. Who do interviews, and when they're asked, yo, but how'd you start out? Oh, this was all me. Right? This was all me. I was doing this, I was doing that, and I'm listening to these interviews, and I'm like, no, son, I gave you that first shot, right? Or I'm listening to these interviews, and I'm like, no. I was in the radio station, FNF Live, when you were a nobody,
and nobody knew
right?
who you were.
You were a nobody, and Jay Blaze, the mouth of the South, went and put your song on.
Right? I'm at a point in my life. I think I wasted a lot of time, a lot of years stressing about who would acknowledge what I was. I mean, you're doing it now, and I appreciate it. But I moved on, and I just realized there was something someone said to me a couple years ago. Actually, it's been like 8-9 years. It was a church planning network event, and we were in our ministry group. Like, at the time, I was on a staff that was launching a church, and I remember someone saying to us in this, and it sort of helped me with everything in life, everything from what I did in radio to working in ministry to whatever, even with the podcast, how I look at this stuff. And I said that sometimes, and I think I've told you this before, like, what we do on this earth for God is but a speck of his grand plan.
Right.
And sometimes we get caught up. There's moments there's people that have come, I've been grateful. Like, I had a couple of situations where someone came up and was like, yo, I appreciate everything you did for me years ago. I've had conversations with people that I haven't met in years. They'll sit on a call with me, find out I'm the person doing the interview, and they're like, whatever you want. Yeah. I remember when you were playing when nobody cared. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was valuable. But I've also remembered that although I'm not doing radio anymore at the level I was doing it back then, I'm still involved in sort of a degree with Art Soul Radio in Chicago.
Shout out Art Soul.
Shout out to Art Soul, to Mary Young, everybody over there. I am extremely grateful. Yeah. I'm grateful for the relationships like this, because if I'm not longer as involved in radio, I'm not at the FM in Miami anymore, but look, 12, 15 years later, I still have Soto, who I'm talking to.
And it's like that because, like, when Chino was going to plant the church, right, and he went up to Georgia with the team, right, they were in my house. Right? I took the days off of work to drive them around, right, and it's not it's not because, oh, I'm going to be a part of this. No, it's because this is the relationship. This is the bond.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't even a thing like, hey, Jay, I'm going to connect you with Jay Blaze. He has a show there in Miami. Dope. I mean, if he can help. And I didn't know who you were, so I was like, I'm willing to pay or like whatever I need.
Whatever.
Right? And you just freely gave. And then he came up and we freely gave, right? And it's all these things that I'm going to tell you 2 things concerning that, right? And I'm going to tell you why. And I'm going to explain to everybody why I'm saying all of this.
You got 2 minutes.
So
this man is going hard.
Somebody reached out to this artist, right? And dropped my name. Right? Dropped my name as a connecting point. Right? And the artist said, yeah, I remember Jay. I haven't spoken to him in years. We ain't close, right? And when the dude told me that, in my mind, I was like, that's because you don't respond to my text messages or pick up my calls no more, son. Right? Relationships work both ways. Know what I mean? Right? And then to flip that around, somebody else was at Sony in Nashville, right? And just they were invited to Sony, songwriting, whatever. Somebody that I had some beef with back in the day, right? And whatever, would just wasted a lot of time talking bad about me and trying to drag my name through the dirt. And he's out there in Sony in Nashville. I'm like, oh, you from Atlanta? Yo, you know Jay? Right? You know Jay? And he goes, oh, yeah, I know Jay. I go, that's cool. Yo, if you see him, tell him I said, what's up, man? Jay's so dope. I'm here now because Jay helped me.
Look at that.
You know what I'm saying? Right? So I say this because of this. Because I know this is daddy dialogue, right? But you sometimes aren't a dad to just the kids that you birth, right? Sometimes you're a dad to people's dreams, to people's like wants and their hopes. And you become a father figure, a spiritual father to a lot of people. And you have been that to a lot of people. Right? And you've experienced all that before you had Josiah to raise him, right? And now because of how you were treated or mistreated by people who you fathered in this, right? How to speak and raise him so that he doesn't become one of those ungrateful little roaches that are walking around, right? Because it's not about acknowledgement, right? It's not about acknowledgement. But it's also, I like to thank my dad, right, for all the talks, right, for all the balls thrown, right, all the times he stayed up late at night.
It's funny. It's funny you say it like that, and I'm glad you closed it like that because I didn't really envision it like that. Because you're just going and you're just doing, yeah. And a lot of times like. There's people that'll come and say, yeah, man, I started because of you, or I got in this because of you. And I know neither of us care about that. We don't sit here and be trying to check notes of like, oh, I helped this guy get started. We don't really care. Actually, we laugh sometimes. Oh, yeah, for real, that's how I started. And we'll just go into dialogue. But knowing that, and I know you're trying to make it about me. I want to say thank you for one, just the person you've always been. The non-expectancy, like Jay, you're one of the only few people I call. We haven't talked in weeks, and we talk, and it's like we just didn't miss a beat.
But this is what I'm saying.
It's always been like that. I tell you this all the time, and I mean it, no cap. Like there's people that you can talk to a certain way that get it, that you don't have to readdress or overly see how they're feeling that day to see if you're going to tell them and they're sort of going to get what you're saying. No, Soto is a certain way with me, and I've even told my wife, like, this is one of the only people I could talk to like this. I'm not worried, and I've been honest. You've been the same, and it's always been like, this is the kind of, there's not a lot of them. I don't have a lot of those. Just because I'm careful and I've been hurt a lot in relationships, so you're trying to make sure that dudes that you value and you spend your time with, you're like, these are people it's the people that hold weight in your life, and you're like, these are people I can look up to, I can respect, I can learn from. They're going through some of the things I'm going through, and you learn from them. To me, like, even I didn't care if we did the podcast. I was more like, There's somebody to respect. I know it just comes a lot from us just conversating. Although we talk like crazy, and if I don't stop, we can go for 2, 3.
Yo, we can. Yeah, it could be like
it could go forever.
A month series.
Yeah, and so sadly, my audience is going to leave after 20 minutes because no one sticks to no one that long. And so we're going to get out of here before it gets crazy. I do want to tell people, how do they check out your podcast? I know you have a church plant that you're beginning here in St. Pete in the Berg. Give them a little info of that before we get out of here.
Man,
and he didn't tell me, so you know, let me keep you off rip.
I wasn't ready for this.
And he didn't tell me to say nothing. This man is not about none of that. Shout out to Matt for this location. What's again the
Matt Crest Art.
Matt Crest Art Basel. Go check his art out. Go buy some pieces. The man is dope. His spot is it's legit. I feel so artsy. It's a different vibe in here. And shout out to Matt. He did. I mean, this man is a blessing to even let us get up in here.
Yeah, for real.
Tell me give me the podcast real quick, and then shoot me.
Well, it's a lot. So it's 90 seconds with Pastor Jay. It's a 90-second devotional. That
Go follow this man. TikTok, Instagram, everywhere.
That you told me to start doing.
It's dope. It's dope
for your radio show. And
remember you were doing that. That's right. Devotion is your radio show.
You're like, hey, can you put together like 90-second devotional? I'm like, I've never thought about it, but yeah, I mean, that's what you need.
And now this man does them like...
And now it's daily, right? Years later, still doing it daily.
That's dope.
Right? So it's 90 seconds. Man, just go to my Instagram, right? Jae M Soto Jr. J with an E, Jae, Jae M Soto Jr. And everything, you can connect everything there. So with me, it's all things legacy. So the church or the community is just legacy. So on Instagram is We Are Legacy. The website is also wearelegacy.com. LGCY, no vowels. Legacy music, like everything is all things legacy, because we're all about living the legacy of Jesus for the renewal of all things.
That's dope. Go JD. What a catchline, huh? I knew he was gonna bring it back together. His old church behind. I knew his pastoral skills were gonna jump right back in and give me what. Listen, guys, don't forget, I appreciate everybody. We're recording this on a Saturday. The first newsletter went out today. We appreciate I got a couple messages. People saying they got it, they love it. We're going to make it even better. But I appreciate everybody who signed up. If you haven't signed up, like Jay here who hasn't, put him on the spot. But I know he has my back regardless. He already did the logo for it. I can't ask for the man for too much. I can't get on him for everything.
You know why I haven't signed up? Because I know, this is how I got involved with you in F&F. I know that if I get it, I'm going to be like, I'm going to start sending you like daily devotionals for.
And I'll tag them joints on there too. Don't play. I think it'll be sick. Go join the newsletter. It's totally free. There's a growing community of parents, dads, and moms that have joined the group. And I want you to join it too. So do that. We got some great things coming. There's a deck of cards for parents to have conversations with their kids coming too. I got some really dope. Yes, there's some dope things coming. So go do that. Join the newsletter. Thank you, Matt. What?
Matt Crest Art.
Matt Crest Art on Instagram. Thank you for the beautiful location. His artwork is behind this, all around this room. I'm going to actually post like a rerun or a recap so you can see some of this dope art this man is creating. Thank you so much, everybody, right here on the Daddy Dialogue Podcast.